Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopirana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopirana Vallabha Girivardhari Shodhanandana Radhadana Ranjana Shodhanandana Radhadana Yamuna Tira Banachari Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopirana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopirana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Bradadana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Bradadana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivraj Kacharya Asudara Sutta C.C. Mati Dani Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivraj Kacharya Asudara Sutta C.C. Mati Dani Swami's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Prem Sikahosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siveti Gadadhar Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki
Jai.
Vrindavan Dhama Ki
Jai.
Mathura Dhama Ki Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Shri Markanandi Dhama Ki
Jai.
Rangamaya Namaya Ki
Jai.
Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Srila Prabhupada Chancellor Book Distribution Ki Chancellor Prasad Distribution Ki Upadasi Brata Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari Gaur. All glories to some of the devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to some of the devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to some of the devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tatha Rajastamo Bhava Kama Loba Dayaschaye Chetai Tairana Vidam Sitvam Satve Prasidati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 22nd chapter, text number 59. Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Guptarto varuno yata.
Guptarto varuno yata.
Guptarto varuno yata.
Guptarto varuno yata.
Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Dharmarad iva shikshayam.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Ascharye himavaniva.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Kubera iva koshadyo.
Guptarto Varuno Yata.
Guptarto Varuno Yata. Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Guptarto varuno yata.
Guptarto varuno yatha. Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Ashcharye himavaniva.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Ashcharya himavan iva.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Marat iva shikshayam.
Dharmarat iva shikshayam.
Acharye himavan iva.
Ashcharye himavan iva.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Kuvera iva koshadhyo.
Tato varuno yatha.
Guptarto varuno yatha.
Dharmarat iva.
Dharmarat iva.
Like King Yamaraj,
Like King
Yamaraj.
Yamaraj,
the superintendent of death.
the superintendent of death.
Shikshayam,
Shikshayam.
in education.
In education.
Ascharye,
Ashcharye.
in opulence.
In
opulence.
Himavaniva,
Himavan iva.
like the Himalaya mountains.
Like the Himalaya mountains.
Kuveraha,
Kuvera.
the treasure of the heavenly planets.
the treasure of the heavenly planets.
Iva,
Iva.
like.
Like.
Posha Adyaha,
Koshadhya.
in the matter of possessing wealth.
In the matter of possessing wealth.
Gupta Artaha,
Gupta
Artaha.
secrecy.
Secrecy.
Varunaha,
Varuna.
the demigod named Varuna.
The demigod named Varuna.
Yataha,
Yata.
like.
Like.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Maharaj Prithu's intelligence and education were exactly like that of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. His opulence was comparable to the Himalaya mountains, where all valuable jewels and metals are stocked. He possessed great riches like Kuvera, the treasure of the heavenly planets, and no one could reveal his secrets, for they were like the demigods Varunas. Purport:
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yamaraj or Dharmaraj,
I'm
as
sorry.
the superintendent of death, has to judge the criminal living entities who have committed sinful activities throughout their lives. Consequently, Yamaraj is expected to be most expert in judicial matters. Prithu Maharaj was also highly learned and exceedingly exact in delivering his judgment upon the citizens. No one could excel him in opulence any more than estimate the stock of minerals and jewels in the Himalaya mountains. Therefore, he is compared to Kuvera, the treasure of the heavenly planets. Nor could anyone discover the secrets of his life any more than learn the secrets of Varuna, the demigod presiding over the water, the night, and the western sky. Varuna is omniscient, and since he punishes sins, he is prayed to for forgiveness. He is also the sender of disease and is often associated with Mitra and Indra. Shayam Ascharye Himavaniva Kubera Iva Koshadyo Guptarto Varuno Yata. Maharaj Prithu's intelligence and education were exactly like that of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. His opulence was comparable to the Himalaya mountains, where all valuable jewels and metals are stocked. He possessed great riches like Kubera, the treasure of the heavenly planets, and no one could reveal his secrets, for they were like the demigod Varunas. Om Madhyanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Jayasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadam Aham Vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, we are reading here about Prithu Maharaj's extraordinary qualities, and he's being praised by none other than the Kumaras, which means that this is a fact. Nowadays, when people are being eulogized or praised, oftentimes it is without any substance and without any real meaning or depth, because it is just a matter of formality. But the persons that are being glorified usually do not have even a fraction of the attributes that are being described. But Prithu Maharaj, being none other than an incarnation, he's a Shakti Vesha avatar of the ruling potency of the Lord. He exhibited all these qualities and characteristics in fullness. So here he's compared to different demigods, Yamaraj, Kuvera, Varuna, and to the Himalayan mountains. So we will analyze some of these qualities and then try to elaborate on their meaning and what are the takeaways for us. Prithu Maharaj is the king, he's the emperor, so as such, he has to be the most intelligent and educated, otherwise how can he rule justly over citizens? So he's being compared to Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, who is certainly the most, as it is put here, the most exact in delivering judgment and the most expert in judicial matters. That is the qualification of a ruler. He has to know what is the law. If a ruler doesn't know what the law is, or does not follow the law himself in an exemplary manner, then he's a ruler in name only. We can see nowadays, no need to get into comparisons of names, but a lot of the current political class is being caught up in a lot of legalistic battles and lawsuits. And even though they're trying to campaign, everybody knows that they are not of impeccable character. So for a leader to have impeccable character is of utmost importance. Why? Because otherwise people will lose faith. They will lose trust and confidence in that leader. Not only are they to pay a fourth of their product or of their earnings to the leader in tax, but also they are to follow the laws and the injunctions that are being enunciated by the leader. So, and that is only possible if people see that the leadership is actually intelligent, educated, and honestly, sincerely following the same laws. So Yamaraj is certainly the most knowledgeable and the most expert in the matters of law, because his business is to judge all living entities at the time of death, which is the ultimate test, the ultimate challenge. So he's presiding in court, and he has to decide on the future destinations of all the living entities, especially the human beings which are accruing karma. We know that the animal and plant life forms do not accrue karma. They're just living out their karma, and they go through the natural cycle and get gradually elevated. But the human beings especially are subjected to the judgment of Yamaraj. And that's why people are usually quite afraid of Yamaraj. So then his opulence is compared to the Himalayan mountains. Now for some people this may come to be a little questionable. Why do you compare opulence to a mountain? But if we actually analyze it, then we understand why this is so. Actually, all the wealth is coming from the mountains, because whatever minerals and metals and jewels that are there, they originate from the mountains. Even nowadays, if you study geology, all these things are extracted from the mountains or from the earth. So the Himalayas, which are the greatest mountain range, are compared to Prithu, or vice versa. So his opulence is as vast and as unlimited as the Himalayan mountains are. Nobody can really fathom the size and the opulences that are there in the Himalayan mountains. So that's why Prithu is being compared, his opulence is being compared to the Himalayan mountains. Also, his riches are like Kuvera's, who is the treasurer of the demigods. Certainly the demigods, who are higher beings, are much more wealthy and much more prosperous than the human beings. We can see here people are having a lot of artifacts made of plastic and base metals and all kinds of other poor substitutes, whereas in higher planets, they're mainly dealing with silver, gold, and precious metals, valuable jewels and gemstones that are unheard of nowadays on the earthly realm. So Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the heavenly planets, he is the wealthiest person, so to speak, because he is keeping stock of all the treasures of the Devas. And his secrets are as deep and as hidden as the demigod Varunas. Now, Varuna is presiding over the oceans. Nobody can really penetrate the ocean or find the limit of the ocean. The ocean seems to be limitless. So Kuvera is the one who is in charge of the treasury of the demigods, and Varuna is the one who is presiding over the oceans and actually over all the bodies of water. And because he does so, he rules over the water, the night, and the western sky. He is omniscient. That means he knows about the activities of all living entities, and it is his task to send disease, to punish the wrongdoers, and in this way rectify them. It is stated here in the purport by Srila Prabhupada that he is often associated with Mitra and Indra. So when we hear of these qualities, then we get an idea of how exalted, of how special Prithu Maharaj was. And it is wonderful to see how these qualities are there in Krishna's different manifestations. We have in the Bhagavad Gita the Vibhuti Yoga chapter where all these opulences are given, where Krishna is compared to different entities, or Krishna's opulences, they're being exemplified in different living entities. So Prithu Maharaj, he's embodying these. So what can we learn from this? To me, what strikes me is that all these demigods and all these living entities, they fulfill a particular function, a particular purpose, and they're happy doing that service. They do not want to be somebody else. They're content to follow their own nature, their own dharma, and to contribute in a particular way to the upkeep of the universe and to the service of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And their services have great responsibility, and also sometimes because of that great responsibility, there also comes a certain element of pride that can arise. As we see when we study the Bhagavatam, that different demigods, time and time again, run into trouble, so to speak. So when the demigods want to fully engage themselves in devotional service, they actually pray to, or they appear in a human form in order to just take the humble role and engage in devotional service. Just like Yamaraj, he has to rule over people when they're about to die. So he appears as Vidura, and he takes this humble role as the son of a servant, and he just exclusively engages in devotional service of Krishna. But still, because he's Yamaraj, he has these qualities, he has this exalted nature, so he's advising people in the court, and especially his elder brother Dhritarashtra, on what is Dharma and what is the proper course of action. We can also see how Brahma appeared as Haridas Thakur to just simply absorb himself in the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in this way, he was relieved of all the anxiety and headache of having to deal with universal creation and administration. And there are other examples of such. So for me, the takeaway here is that to be content to fulfill one's role in Krishna's service, to just be who Krishna intended us to be, rather than trying to be somebody, or trying to be somebody else, or trying to exceed others, which is the natural tendency in the material world where people are under the influences of the mode of passion and ignorance. So when I was in Vrindavan quite a while ago, I met Kurmarupa Prabhu on several occasions. He was working at the Goshala and at the Care for Cows place, and it was very interesting how he would, every time we met, they have the mini market there, what is now just in front of Krishna Hall, I think, where devotees take prasadam, that's what it's called, in that open space. There was a mini market, and he was usually at the booth of the Goshala or Care for Cows, and he would always just listen to me like a wise elder. He never tried to sign me up for a membership, or he never tried to preach to me or push his project onto me, but he saw that I just wanted to talk to him because he's such a gentle soul and such a wise person. And in my youthful exuberance, I did most of the talking and he did most of the listening. But he realized that he could serve best in this role of a wise elder and just hear me out. Have you ever had the experience of somebody giving you full, undivided attention and without any distraction or with any judgment or with any advice or jumping in and giving solutions, just heard you out and then said some encouraging words? It's a truly memorable experience. So I was always looking forward to meeting Kurmarupa Prabhu somewhere around Vrindavan because I knew that I would get a few moments of truth with him. I would get some open ears, some open heart, and a few encouraging words of wisdom. And I felt this person is truly grounded because he is happy to be himself. He is happy to do the simple service of taking care of cows, even cows that have been abandoned. It's not a commercially viable project. It's not producing results. They're not running a commercial dairy or putting scores up on the board, but is just doing what is the needful. What is it that Krishna wants me to do right now? And because of that, of being truly authentic, of being himself, he was very attractive to me. Even though he's a leader without a title, he was not involved in management on a bigger scale, and he was just being himself in his own humble, unassuming way. And I'd like to also speak a few words on two other personalities who just recently passed away that also have exemplary leadership qualities. Yashamati Nandan Prabhu, he just passed, a dear disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and he was very instrumental in expanding and preaching Krishna consciousness. He has translated books, opened temples, made a lot of devotees, and expanded Krishna consciousness in Gujarat, in India, in America, and around the world. And whenever I met him, he was a gentle giant. He was of short stature, but he had a great heart. He was very soft-spoken, but very, very attentive, very intuitive, and a good listener. So I always appreciated meeting him, and I saw how, even though he was so gentle and soft-spoken, he had a great impact on people's lives. People listened to him and they paid attention because he had gravity, he had depth. And I also felt that he was very sincere and authentic. He was just being himself, not trying to fulfill some other person's responsibility. And then there is Nitai Chaitanya Goswami, originally from Ukraine, or what was then known as the former Soviet Union. He had heard the Mahamantra in the 70s on BBC International Radio, which was illegal at that time. And then in the early 80s, he came in touch with Krishna consciousness, and he gave up his job and his situation, and he became a full-time devotee. And under great risk, he translated, published, and distributed books all over the Soviet Union. And he did the hard yards, traveling in trains and by public transportation all throughout this great country that is very vast. You have to know that the former Soviet Union, you can fly for 12 hours from east to west. It's a 12-hour flight, and it's 11 time zones. It's the biggest landmass as far as a country goes. So he went far and wide to preach and expand Krishna consciousness. He was 20 years older than my generation, so he was just about to turn 70. Yet, even though he was 20 years older, and we were God brothers back then when he was known as Yagyapriya, and later on when he was known as Nitai Chaitanya and then Nitai Chaitanya Goswami, so he always took the humble role. He was always very gentle and kind, even though he was 2 decades older than most of us. And so it was very endearing. He had a very simple nature, yet he had deep faith in the holy name and in preaching Krishna consciousness, great taste for the holy name. So, and there is a unique impact that resides in our heart when we see personalities who are truly authentic in their life and content with whatever it is that Krishna has given them and what their role is to play. So here we have this example of these great personalities, and Prithu Maharaj is compared to them. And we can also try to aspire for some of these qualities, of course, in a minute quantity, but still, these are qualities that are to be emulated. Srila Prabhupada also, if we look and we analyze, we study his life, we can see how he was happy to start small, and he had faith in the process. He had fully unflinching 100% faith in the instruction of his spiritual master. He several times told that there are temples, there are devotees, there are books, even though it had not yet been manifested. But he had that vision, so he also was, you could say, omniscient. He also had that trikalagya, that knowledge of past, present, and future, because he was in touch with Krishna's internal potency. Just like it is not that Varuna is omniscient because of his own persona, but because Krishna has invested this potency, he has invested this ability in Varuna. So in a similar way, the pure devotee who is in total union with the Lord's internal desire becomes empowered to know what Krishna wants him to know. So Srila Prabhupada, he was completely sold out to this transcendental system of Guru Parampara. And he had full faith that the potency is available and it can be disseminated, it can be distributed anywhere at all times, provided that the person is serious and sincere and has no ulterior motive. He oftentimes made that point. Serious, sincere, and no ulterior motive. So oftentimes people, they think that the guru business is just a matter of personality cult. You just have to get an image consultant and a marketing consultant and a few sponsors, and then you can promote whoever you want to promote, because that is usually how things work on the stock market of the mundane fame. But that is all very short-lived and meaningless in the bigger scheme of things. Whereas in Guru Parampara, the the teacher is seeing himself as an instrument, as an insignificant servant, as a simple order carrier or a torchbearer for that potency that is coming from Krishna. So this is Krishna's system, and it is working. It is working as we speak all throughout the world. And sometimes people say, yes, Srila Prabhupada, he was a Shakti Vaishavatar, he was this, he was that. But then in the next statement, they will say, yet he could not leave even one disciple behind who could carry on the legacy. It stopped with him. So in one side, they glorify him and say he was practically an empowered incarnation. And then in the next sentence, they say no one could really follow him and do what he does. So therefore, they're actually insulting him. So we have to be careful that we understand these nuances, we understand these subtleties and details. Otherwise, in the name of praise, we may actually insult or diminish the spiritual master or the acharya. Also, I mentioned Buddhimanta Prabhu in my last talk here, but I forgot to tell the second half of the story. So I talked about the encounter that I had with him in Vrindavan, where he just glorified Srila Prabhupada and glorified the process of Sankirtan and appreciated us who came to visit him. He made it not about himself, but he was just happy, praising Srila Prabhupada and giving credit to others. That is the nature of an unassuming, humble, and pure Vaishnava. Then after that encounter, we went back to the West and continued distributing books. And when we heard that Buddhimanta Prabhu had passed away from the world, we took note of that, which date it was. And actually, he passed away on Shiva Ratri. And on that day, it was the biggest day that each and every one of us had on book distribution. I remember to this day, I went door to door, knocking on people's doors and business to business, and I was allowed to distribute 255 Mahabig and big books, 2 Srimad Bhagavatam set and 1 Chaitanya Charitamrita set. It was unbelievable. It was not a marathon. It was not like super long hours, just like 7 or 8 hours, standard work day, not like 12 hours. And people were just throwing money at us. They just looked at us and said, yes, I take it, and handed us money. So later on I realized that because Buddhimanta Prabhu had dedicated his life to Srila Prabhupada's mission to propagate the Sankirtan, he had traveled actually all over the world to teach devotees how to distribute Prabhupada's books. And he was the first one who distributed over 100 big books in a day. So because he had dedicated his life to this mission, on the day that he left this world, Krishna and Prabhupada, they said, okay, today nobody can refuse. Everybody just has to take books. And because that was his mood, that was his spirit, that was his desire. Because he lived to glorify his spiritual master and Krishna, so Krishna and Prabhupada made it their business to glorify and exalt Buddhimanta. And even to this day, we remember these great souls, these great Vaishnavas, who have dedicated their lives to this mission. Even though the majority of them were leaders without a title. They did not carry any titles or managerial responsibilities, but they were just happy to be themselves and to play whatever role that Krishna had allocated to them. So to me, that's a great inspiration, and that's a great role model. So these are some of the thoughts that come to my mind, and I would like to hear from you, your reflections, comments, and questions. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, a question kind of not directly related to the class, but more related to your delivery. How is it you have such enthusiasm and inspiration in speaking this great Bhagavat knowledge?
Hare Krishna. Well, they asked Charlie Chaplin one time, what is the secret of his success? And he said, 50% of your success is if you just show up at the right place at the right time. That's already half the rent. And then they asked him, what's the other 50%? And he said, it's enthusiasm. Entheos means to actually be inspired or to be possessed by God. Krishna Shakti Vinanahetar Pravartan. So if we get up early and we perform inspirational sadhana, which means we chant the holy name of Krishna as attentively as possible, and we scrutinizingly, meticulously study Srimad Bhagavatam, then naturally in our hearts that desire will arise where we feel, I need to give this to others. I have to share this message to others. This is too good to just keep it for myself. I just this morning finished the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and even though the topic was on the creation of the universe, the sages, they were more interested to know, what did Vidura do? What was Vidura's course of action? What happened? So they just interjected, and they kind of like you did, slightly changed the topic and just said, we want to hear about this, and please tell us more about this. This is the nectar. And then the third canto starts going in that direction. But the Bhagavatam is not chronological. It's coming back to the theme later on in the third canto, but it's actually following the you can say the baseline or the heart line, and not just a historical perspective. One time Srila Prabhupada was flying on a plane, and I think I told that story, so the story of Charlie Chaplin and the Bhagavad Gita and all that, and Shyama Sundar, right? I told that. You remember?
I don't recall hearing that.
Tell it again. Tell it again.
Yeah.
So one time, Srila Prabhupada was in a plane, and you know they have these big screens, and Shyama Sundar was his servant, and the movie was coming on. Shyama Sundar thought, this is Maya, so he put the chadar over his head, and he went to sleep. And it was Charlie Chaplin movie. So after a while, he took the chadar down, and he saw Prabhupada was laughing, and tears were gliding down his cheeks. So he wondered, why is Prabhupada watching this? He became a little bewildered. And Prabhupada told him that Charlie Chaplin's humor is very original. And then later on, Charlie Chaplin got a Bhagavad Gita through Jai Gurudev Prabhu, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who went to his home in Vevey on the Lake of Geneva, gave the Bhagavad Gita to Charlie Chaplin's wife. And a couple of years later, he went again there, and Charlie had passed away, but his wife told him that in his last months, Charlie Chaplin would almost every day sit by the lake in his rocking chair and read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Said it was his favorite book. So it takes one to know one. Charlie liked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada liked Charlie. So back to the topic of enthusiasm. When you read the Bhagavatam, when we read the Bhagavatam, there's all these precious jewels and gems that just jump at you, and you just feel like, hey, this is too good. I can't just keep this to myself. I need to give this to someone else. So then what you do is, whenever you go out on a walk or wherever you go, you just carry a few books of Prabhupada with you, and whoever you meet, you just smile at them and say hi or Hare Krishna. And whoever responds favorably, you give him a book. and people are actually very open, especially in these times of crisis and confusion. People are more open than ever. So for me, personally speaking, I have no good qualification, and I am filled with faults and with shortcomings, and I feel it is simply because of the mercy and the kindness of the Vaishnavas. With their stick, I can walk. Otherwise, I cannot even move. I would be immobile. And everything that I know and everything that I have received came to me through the mercy of the Vaishnavas. And again, I found that my god uncles and aunties were even more merciful and generous oftentimes than my spiritual masters, because the master has to be strict, the master has to chastise, the master has to instruct, whereas the uncle and the grandfather, they can just be very generous and very lavish and just kind of lay it on. So we are very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has left us this wonderful ISKCON family where we have this great Sangha, this great facility to get enthused and then to enthuse others, to inspire others. I'm right now here in Alachua, New Raman Reti Dham, and there is, I don't know, about 2,000 devotees living in this area. Wherever you go on a walk, you meet devotees. Every second or third house is a devotee. Our mailman is a devotee. You go to the farmer's market, you only meet devotees. In the supermarket, wherever you go. So there's so much Sangha available. Even if we're somewhere in North Dakota or in Idaho, we can still connect to the spiritual sound vibration. That wherever and wherever the transcendental topics of Krishna Katha are being discussed, there what happens is that all fear, anxiety, and confusion and lust, anger, greed, all the madness goes away, and the heart becomes peaceful and happy, and we actually can focus, and we become non-envious. It's very easy in this world to become competitive. Has it ever happened to you, or is it just me? That we start comparing ourselves with others, and we think, oh, this one has this one has that, woe is me. But if we actually read the Bhagavatam and we study these examples of personalities of great and small stature who were just happy being themselves and making their humble contribution, for me, this really helps me to overcome my own false ego and then to try to do something for the mission of Prabhupada, because I feel it is needed more than ever, and people are receptive more than ever for this message of Krishna consciousness. So we should never waste a good crisis. Right now we have the choice of either building a bunker and stocking up on black beans and pinto beans and garbanzo beans and whatnot, and getting more guns and ammo and crawling into the hole and saying everything is bad, or we can see this as the greatest opportunity that people are more open and more ready to accept some guidance, some inspiration. Yet, provided it comes from a position of, it comes from a non-judgmental position. People don't like to be talked down to. People don't like it when someone thinks they know it all and they're going to tell it to them. And so when we try to share this message, it really takes a little bit of humility and introspection so we can look people eye to eye and just meet them on a human plane and share this knowledge. If we have a superiority complex or an inferiority complex, or even worse, a mixture, a combination of both of these together, then that will really spoil the interaction. So these are just some thoughts on the matter. For me personally, I just feel the urgency that Srila Prabhupada has in his deliverance, how he stayed up and translated 6 pages every night. We all know how hard it is to write a meaningful Vyasa Puja offering or a letter with intent, what to speak of 6 pages of Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada did this for every single night for 6 hours, for 6 pages, and for several hours he was up at night. I just heard the memories of Yashamati Nandan Prabhu, who was speaking about how one time he was massaging Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was ill. It was in Vrindavan in the later parts, just months before he passed away. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, Prabhupada woke up and he started speaking about the rascal scientists. And for 5 or 10 minutes, he started speaking, and then he went back to sleep. So Srila Prabhupada was always preaching, and he was always eager. There was a sense of urgency. That doesn't mean that we have to be in a very aggressive mode, or there is no space for other things. Like here in New Raman Reti, I was so happy to see, like, every day the minivans are lining up and parents are dropping off their children at the school. They got 2 schools here, and there's a lot of devotee kids around, and they're taking great care to make sure they get a good education and a good experience in Krishna consciousness, so that the message will be available for future generations. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I would really like to say something.
Yes.
I'm very inspired. I thought that the most impactful thing you said is that when you got the examples of devotees that you've come in contact with that were genuine, that you could have a heart-to-heart conversation with them, and they would just give you that undivided attention and listen without judgment and not give advice. I know everything, but just listen to you unload your heart and then give you encouragement. That was so inspiring. And then what you just said about we should not have a superiority complex or an inferiority complex, and worse is a combination of both. I would really like for you to elaborate on that.
Well, I think the inferiority and superiority complex, we're quite familiar with that, right? That's quite a known factor, what that entails. But a combination of both means that I feel insecure because I feel there's something lacking in me for whatever reason, so I'm deficient. Yet at the same time, I envy you for all your attributes that you have, but I hate you for it because you have it and I don't. And I think I should have it. So I'm thinking that actually I'm something better for whatever reason, because I come from a certain country, or I come from a certain caste, or I went to a certain school, or I'm a disciple of a certain spiritual master. And that's why I should actually be the guy. I should be the man. I should be the one who has what this person in front of me has. So it's a mixture of inferiority and superiority complex, which comes across really weird. It's really rasa bas. And it just completely breaks down the relationship, and it just spoils it entirely. And so to have a person who is non-judgmental and actually just happy being themselves and helping others in that way is truly refreshing and endearing. And right now, I'm sorry if I venture a little bit slightly off on a tangent, but it is the topic, to see these role models like these great exalted personalities. And also some of us are in the second half of our lives, some of us are in the autumn of our lives, some of us are in the winter of our lives. So this is the legacy project. This is how we can actually go out with glory. It's not about scoring some more and achieving a few more projects, but it is really about empowerment of the next generation. We have lost a good number of Prabhupada disciples. We have lost the majority of the people of the 80s and 90s that I grew up with, and a lot of our youth. And that is just such a great loss. So we should learn from the past how we can actually better things so that we rejoice in other people's successes and we empower others and we train them, and then we just guide them. We just give them the support and the pointers and the example and the advice that they need for them to succeed. So to me, that is the need of the hour. That is the need of our institution at this crucial time that we're living in right now. Because the people who have lived and walked and served under Srila Prabhupada are becoming fewer and fewer. And in a few years, in a couple of decades, people will just, oh, okay, I watched the video, I hear the class, but it becomes more and more remote, so to speak. So unless we preserve the same mood of selfless service and of excitement and of empowerment that Srila Prabhupada had when he just told people in Delhi, oh, okay, you guys get off the train, you, and you open a center here in Delhi. And he lent them 50 rupees to start the center in Delhi. So that sense of urgency and of empowerment that right now is maybe or maybe not present, depending on where we are and how we lead our lives. So to me, this is Krishna consciousness. This is what keeps it alive. This is Krishna Shakti Vinana Hitara Pravartan. And this is what gives me sense and direction and meaning and purpose in life. So how to safeguard myself from not falling into this inferiority or superiority complex, or a combination of both, is by reading Prabhupada's books every day and going out and eating humble pie, meaning it's refreshing when you get ignored, when you get insulted, when someone slams a door in your face. You should feel happy that I have joined the club of Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. I have earned my stripes. This is what it takes. It's not by staying in the safe zone and feeling myself something exalted or something special that I can actually make spiritual advancement. It takes application, because that is a requirement. I don't know if that explains what I was hinting at. I don't want to get more graphic.
Why not?
Well, we all had the experience also when in different types of situations when we are in dialogues. You'll meet a person and the first thing they do is they ask you a bunch of questions, so you feel like you're at the border control, you get interrogated, and then they give you a bunch of advice. And so at the end it's like who wants to be around in such a situation? It's just not very enthusing. It's not very inspiring if somebody just shoots question at you and then gives you commandos or orders. So I have to personally pull back and take myself back, because I'm a tall German-speaking fellow, and I have to tone it down. Otherwise, in the name of service, it's easy to do disservice. And then later on, we just hear of the casualties. And that moment of introspection and self-analysis has to kick in, because people don't care how smart you are and how many great projects and achievements you've done unless there is some grain of humility and introspection. And we know some people, they're they have a real hard time, and it's hard because we are made to believe that unless we save our face and we portray a certain image of ourselves, that we will not succeed in life, or we will be walked upon, or we will be neglected. But actually, Krishna, he's a Kinchana Gochara. He is meditating and thinking and constantly connected with his devotees who claim to have nothing in this world. Mahaprabhu came and he ate the raw rice of Shuklam Bardas Brahmachari. He took it straight out of his begging bag and he threw it in his mouth and he ate it. And he said, "This is the greatest nectar I've ever tasted." So even though Shuklambar had nothing, but because he had a pure heart and unalloyed devotion for Lord Chaitanya went and grabbed his rice that he didn't even offer to him, and he forcefully ate it, and he felt ecstatic doing that. So that shows to us that it's really not about the thing that we have or the thing that we do, but it's what is my state of heart? How do I carry myself, and how do I treat Krishna's devotees, big and small, and all living entities that are there in this world? So these are just some reflections that come to my mind.
Beautiful, Prabhu. Right on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope you'll be giving class here regularly. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else, or should we let Navina Nirada go?
As long as he promises to come back, we'll let him go.
All right, Prabhu, that was very inspiring. Really nice class.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. What a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I can't see you, but I'm feeling your presence. And your good wishes and your benevolence is truly encouraging, and it touches my heart, and I'm really endeared also to see how all of you who have given your lives to Srila Prabhupada and to this mission are leading exemplary lives and inspiring so many others by your personal behavior, because that is what children in a family mostly emulate. It's as they say, monkey see, monkey do. Whatever we see is what we're going to do. One time I walked with one of my former teachers, and I just appreciated him. And then I told him that if there is something in me that I struggle with, I think I know where it's coming from, because I was emulating him to such an extent. But then I saw that the discussion was not really going anywhere, because it's very hard to learn things from peers, what to speak of juniors. So it is very painful to speak unpleasant things to seniors, and it's very embarrassing, and it pains my heart. But sometimes it's maybe of a requirement, but I beg for forgiveness if I have ever offended anybody here in this assembly or said something that rubbed somebody the wrong way. It is not my intention to do so. I'm simply here trying to serve and to share a few experiences and realizations. So thank you for giving me this time and for thinking kindly of me. And I wish you all a very enlivening Ekadasi of hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Vanchikalpatruvishya Krishnadev Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo. Hare Krishna.